Oswald Porter, the widow of accused assassin Lee Harvey Oswald. She's here with Mary LaFontaine, who's written a new book on this case. A key figure in Mary's book is a man who shared a jail cell in Dallas with Oswald. That cellmate's name is John Elrod. For years, we've been told there was not another person in the cell, but now we find out there was. Elrod is important in this case because he verifies that there was a link between Oswald and his killer, Jack Ruby. Remember, all these years we've been told they didn't know each other. Mary tracked down John Elrod, and this is some of what he told her.
I just told him I was arrested for the murder down there, and I was in the cell with Oswald, and that was it.
And so, you believe what now, Mary?
I believe that Lee Harvey Oswald was an FBI informant who was reporting on a group that was suspect in this assassination. This group was planning an invasion of Cuba the last week in November 1963. Oswald was reporting on this to the FBI. I believe he was set up as a patsy to neutralize the FBI.
I edited that, but it's an honest edit because all John Elrod adds to the story in the 1990s is that he was Lee Harvey Oswald's cellmate when he was under arrest. And Mary LaFontaine uses that new fact as the linchpin for her explanation of Lee Harvey Oswald and the assassination. But if we go back to 1964, it looks like Elrod was not Lee Harvey Oswald's roommate. Cellmate, of course, not roommate. But looking at the 1964 FBI report here, there's a couple statements in here where it's pretty clear that he's not saying that Oswald was his cellmate. Here, the first one I underlined, his cellmate was a man whose identity he could not recall. So this is in August 1964. He certainly can recall the name of Lee Harvey Oswald, but he can't recall the name of his cellmate, and that implies that his cellmate was not Lee Harvey Oswald. And then the last one, he stated he could not recall whether Jack Ruby's name had been mentioned prior to the time of the killing of Lee Harvey Oswald, but that this cellmate at some time had told him that one of the men who had been at the motel referred to above, name and location unknown, had been Jack Ruby. So obviously, if he's not sure whether his cellmate told him that Jack Ruby had been involved in this gun running deal, if he's not sure whether that was before or after Oswald had been shot, then his roommate can't be Oswald, because then he would be sure it was before Oswald was shot, if you see what I mean. Now, you can say, well, the FBI document is falsified by the FBI. I think that happens, but I don't see any reason to think that's true here. In fact, I don't think the Dallas police would put the murder suspect of the president in a room with another, in a cell with another prisoner. I think it's ridiculous. I think there's no reason to think this is true. And I think Elrod is lying in the 1990s when he says that to Mary LaFontaine. And now I'm going back to the radio transcripts from the police radio traffic regarding this incident. Interspaced with this incident, there's a vehicle that's being referred to. I've concluded that vehicle has nothing to do with Elrod, so I'm going to skip over that stuff. At 2:21 on the afternoon of the assassination, the dispatcher tells 474A there is a subject on this overpass carrying a rifle, railroad tracks, Cobb Stadium. Can you see him? No, we can't see him from here, but we'll go over and get him. And then 22 LL Hill is sent out that way. And the wrecker is going there for the vehicle, but I think the vehicle predates the Elrod thing. And then at 2:27, 52, who's unknown to the Dallas police, even though he's a Dallas police officer, asks, in regard to suspect, the T.C. Cobb Stadium, was it the Hines overpass, the railroad overpass, or the freeway overpass? He is walking on the... Someone cuts in, unable to read. So I think it's interesting that the key information is talked over on the recording, apparently, but we don't have the recording, so we have to rely on the transcript. And 52 says 10-4. Was that north or southbound, or do you know? Unknown. And it's important to 52 apparently, and I think he was told he was on the railroad overpass because we are told he was on the railroad tracks. I think it's important to know what direction he's heading, because the direction he's heading implies what direction he's coming from, but that is not known according to the dispatcher. And then they talk about the car again, which I think is not involved. And they talk about the car again. And that's it for the radio traffic. And we do have an arrest report. This is a latter-day revelation. I don't know when exactly it became available. It might not have been available in the 1990s for Mary LaFontaine. I don't know. But John Franklin Elrod was arrested at the 3400 block of Harry Hines on the railroad tracks, and investigation of murder, and I don't know what co means, but vag is probably vagrancy. So he probably was arrested for vagrancy. And down in the other details of the arrest at the bottom of my crop here, this man was arrested on railroad tracks a few minutes after a radio call was dispatched that a man was walking along railroad carrying a rifle. This man was not carrying a rifle at the time of arrest. This suspect is unemployed, states he has been in Dallas for 2 weeks, lost his job last week at El Phoenix, states he has been arrested for theft and DWI. So, this is the man arrested in the area where a man was reportedly carrying a rifle on the railroad tracks, even though he didn't have a rifle on him when he was arrested. I don't know if LaFontaine reported this in her book, because I haven't read her book. I read an article she wrote from a magazine, and she didn't mention there the fact that Elrod was arrested as a result of a report of somebody walking on the railroad tracks with a rifle. I think that's very interesting on the day the president was shot, and I don't see why that wouldn't figure prominently in a real researcher's presentation of research. This makes me very suspicious of Mrs. LaFontaine. Anyone who wouldn't mention this fact prominently. This is why he got arrested, because there was a report of a guy walking on the railroad tracks with a rifle. I think that's worthy of mention. Also worthy of mention is that Elrod apparently lied to the FBI in 1964. He said that he was arrested 2.5 miles from the scene of the assassination at Lemon and Oaklawn Streets in Dallas. But if we look at the arrest report, that's not where he was arrested. He was arrested at 3400 block Harry Hines on the railroad tracks. This is a different place, and it's only 1.5 miles from Dealey Plaza. So what's being done here, whoever's idea it is that Elrod is being disassociated from the scene of the assassination by putting him further away, and he's not being associated with the original circumstances of his arrest. That is, they were looking for somebody carrying a gun on the railroad tracks. Even if he wasn't arrested with a gun, it's in the arrest report. Presumably he was aware of that. Presumably he was asked about whether he was carrying a rifle. And it looks like the FBI report might be an attempt to disassociate Elrod from the assassination. They're moving him away. Now, I've mapped out some things here. I'm using a 1960 map because that's the closest one I could find. So, things are pretty accurate to the way they were in 1963. Up on the top right area, I've noted an address, 3314 Knight Ave or Street. That's reportedly where Elrod was living, according to his arrest report. right next to that is Oak Lawn and Lemon. That's where he told the FBI he had been arrested. Or technically, if you read that, it says that's where he was at the time of the assassination. But it's not really specified. It sounds as if he's saying that's where he was when he was arrested. But where he was actually arrested is where the purple oval is around Harry. This would be the, I think it's the 3400 block of Harry Hines Boulevard. And the railroad tracks are right there too. And it was near Cobb Stadium there, which I also have circled. So, whether it's technically a lie or not, the FBI report is misleading in saying that he claimed to have been arrested at Oak Lawn and Lemon. And if we look here at a wider view of the same map, I've highlighted in green the railroad tracks which lead straight to Dealey Plaza. And it's about 1.5 miles. So, Elrod was arrested on railroad tracks, which lead straight to Dealey Plaza, 1.5 miles away. Now that might be why number 52 unknown was curious in what direction he was headed. If Elrod had been heading north, then 52 might think, aha, maybe he's coming from Dealey Plaza, because it doesn't take very long to walk 1.5 miles. It only takes about a half an hour or so. And he was, the report came in, let's see, when did the report come in? The first report of the man with the rifle on the railroad tracks near Cobb Stadium came in at, or first appears on the radio anyway, at 2:21. So this is nearly 2 hours after the assassination. Plenty of time to take a stroll north and make it look like you're not running away from anything either. Plenty of time to walk that distance. So I think probably what we're seeing here with the FBI report from 1964 and the Fontaine activity in the 1990s, and with Elrod himself saying he was Oswald's cellmate, I think what we're seeing here is a cover-up of Elrod's true significance. I think he probably carried a rifle away from Dealey Plaza, and that the FBI and whoever handles Elrod, and probably the Fontaines too, are working to hide this fact. Maybe they thought, maybe this was before that arrest report became public, and maybe they thought that would never appear. Well, when that appears, I think it destroys the whole story. What the FBI, or what Elrod was saying to the FBI in 1964, and what the Fontaine said in the 1990s. I think probably, even though he was not arrested with a rifle, that he probably was carrying a rifle on the railroad tracks and somebody saw him, and where it went, I don't know, but I think he probably somehow got rid of it. So, of course, the mainstream media is almost always a clown show on this topic, almost always has been, and I think it's the circus. It's the JFK assassination circus put on as part of the cover-up. The people who are responsible for the assassination, they're the ruling class, they control the media, and they put on this sort of garbage in order to confuse the people. Oprah she's either an idiot or whatever. She's on their side. She's one of them. I think the Fontaines are working for the cover-up here. I haven't read their book. Maybe I should. But I think Elrod is too. I think he's a paid hired hand, and he probably has little choice in the matter. And why would you want to betray the people who can destroy you when you can just do as they say and have a decent life? And so I think you have to be very wary of these high-profile JFK assassination researchers or commentators, or any of the people who are paraded before us, like Marina Porter, or like John Franklin Elrod.